Having more button disasters. Oh well, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. So I've got to reconfigure some stuff, but that's all right. Hello. I deliberately like to create a little inflammatory title there because it's funny. But yeah, I've got to, it's funny how when you sort of change your mind, hang on a sec. And it's like, sometimes, when you just sort of go in and you focus on something and you just go land into this world of like narcissism and sometimes when you just find yourself and you go, where the fuck have I been for like all these years, obviously okay, good morning, hello Judith. Okay, so the chats are off by default now with my streams just because they're distracting. But if I find that I'm having a conversation with the chat, then I'll turn it back on. But like, it's that balance. It's very tricky to sort of, manage both, but that's okay. But, I will so I'll try to engage as much as I can, but also, it does actually affect the replay. So, we're still figuring out the best format. Okay. So it is pretty funny because, I'm pretty on record as like defending tech, right? And, understanding how things are made and, being a little too sort of, I think like everything, I think this is what happened with some of this culture war stuff, which was that I thought that things that were relegated to the comments section or things that were fringe, okay, they were always fringe. Before the internet, there were these things that were just always on the fringes, like nothing that, your average cancel fuck who's like policing language and cracking the shits, like they've always existed, right? I've talked about this before where, I've been at like, I was a student politician, and I was at the NUS conference, and you had that pocket, and this was wasn't pre-internet, but people weren't really online as much as this is pre-social media, but you always had that contingent, like that cohort of people who were just fringe and too intense, and they wanted it their way. Like that's part of working with activism. That's part of working in any kind of group, really. You've always got that small minority of people who are there for the wrong reasons. They're there to bully, they're there to intimidate, they're there to have things the wrong way. Usually they are kicked out of the meeting and they don't get invited back, like they're kind of sidelined, right? There was this one when I was at I was on the university council at my undergrad university, right? Because I was like guild vice president. Just give me a sec. Let me just check, because things are in the corner of my eye over here, and it was just pulling my attention away, and I can't talk. And anyway. But I was in the university council, and that's why, it is funny to look at these, the way that this, I know I'm going to go on a tangent, but I will come back to the point around tech bros. But if you need an instant answer, I'm talking about how the fringes sort of affect the mainstream in more ways, that you don't know what kind of movement is going to be mainstream, and how you hold institutions together and sideline those fringes, because the internet obviously pours jet fuel on all of those things. This is where things like, the effective accelerationist movement, or EACs, and those sorts of tech bro things, right? Those culty things, they actually do have a lot of power, and I think it's very important to understand that this is something that it's kind of hiding in the shadows and sort of driving a lot of the things that we're seeing right now. And it's like, it's not acceptable. This stuff is not acceptable. This is a fringe worldview. And if they actually, stopped concealing what they're actually trying to bring about, they stopped concealing the kind of world that they're trying to create, most people would object. I've talked about that before. So that's where I'm going with it. But I'm going with a story because, the far right obviously exploit this as well, which is that they'll take, like there's one example, like the Colorado State University Inclusive Language Guide, which is one of my favorite documents of all time, because it is just such but it's nothing unusual. So the far right in the US, particularly, the way this whole culture wars machine works is that they'll take something that's always been there. Like it's always been there, like college students, fringe crap, inclusive language, dumb shit, but it's never actually it's just a document from a student council meeting or something like that they sort of extrapolate out to the mainstream. And they're doing that obviously with the whole Palestinian-Israel thing at the moment, which is to use the fringes and the people that are sort of, I've got my frustrations, but people who are kind of using jihadi like propaganda because, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and they're not thinking. But using people who don't know anything, and they do not represent the consensus of most people, and especially professionals in the field, right? There's a reason why these far-right fuckers pick fights with college students, because college students are idiots, okay? They never go to war with people who actually know what they're talking about. They always take Libs of TikTok is probably the most famous account for doing that, which is they'll take some silly teacher or someone with blue hair who's paid, no money, less than minimum wage, who's probably just on TikTok because like it's the only thing that actually gives her some sort of connection with the broader world around her. And she's obviously just trolling conservatives. Like there is a part of me that's like, I just want to dye my hair purple and say the dumbest shit to get these people to like react. Like that's pretty funny, right? But they fall for it every time. But they also use that as a tool to misrepresent these people as representative of a broader ideological like difference, which isn't. Like most people are reasonable, most people are fair, most people are brainworms at the moment, but most people are, when you actually sit down and talk to them and give them the right information and the right data, and give them an understanding of the process, and that they have more power than they realize. That's one big thing with internet arguments in particular, where I'll talk about the uni thing first. But basically what you would do with these sort of fringe people, right? So I was on the university council. I was education vice president, right? This is 20 years ago. God, even 2002. So no, it was 2000. So a good time ago, right? But if you've been organising politically for any length of time, you know that what you do is you give people like that busy work. So you give them work where go off and create like a proposal, go off and do some research, go off and create the document, and we'll just keep continuing and we'll do the work. That's what you do with the fringes, is you give them busy work so that they're not there and they're not disrupting sort of, the main proceedings, right? That's how you manage that stuff. But unfortunately, what's happened is that these sort of fringe people have become so loud and so dominant, and they've sort of been able to combine, okay, which is that they're kind of shouting over people who also now just leave them to the internet, okay, while the business of governing gets done. Okay, so that's why when I talk about going to meetings, that's what I mean. Is I don't sit arguing on the internet with lunatics, because if they wouldn't be on the internet. Okay, I'm kind of an exception there, which is, there are obviously reasonable people, but most of us are people who are digital natives. We are used to being online. We are in this area of persuasion, and like nobody who actually has a meaningful job or anything to do with their like productive to do outside of working on the internet, which is an exception, right? I think we're chugging a little bit. Hang on, just give me a second. That's because of like the fucking, hang on a sec. Let me just turn off it's because it's plugged into USB. That's all right. You're going to have to deal with the jaggedy. Sorry. I'll turn off the preview and hope for the best. Anyway, but that's what you would do. That's how you manage these things and these people. But what's happening is that you've got this sort of symbiosis between the sort of left-wing weirdos that are in the fringes with the green hair and the clogs. I mean, I still remember there was this woman at the NUS conference in 2000 or so, and she had like pink hair, big stripy knee-high socks, green clogs, right? This was like 2000. This was before they were sort of, it became a costume. It was just her way of acting out. Her father was actually a very senior corporate lawyer. She was just a rich kid acting out, and she thought that this was her way of kind of, finding her identity, right? She wasn't representative of the broader, anything to do with the broader organization or anything. She would just try to sit there and hold everyone hostage. So what you do is you give them busy work. Okay, like I said, you give them a little mini committee. You make them like you give them the title. Okay, you sort of do that, and then you get on with like the actual running of things, right? That's what people don't know, because again, if you've involved yourself in any of these things, you know how it operates. But the internet again has infected people's brains to the point where it distorts reality. It distorts your perception of who is doing what, which is that you've got anyone who can identify into the left having never been to a meeting, having never actually done anything, or what's most likely happened is that they've gone to a meeting and not had like the outcome that they wanted, which was holding these things hostage, and they're cracking the shit. So they go online to other people who are unwelcome in these places, and they're having a sad and cracking the sad and having a pity party on Twitter, right? This is why, like as much as I like Twitter, the product, I've realized with a little bit of distance that it is just people now. It used to have like intelligent people sort of connecting and networking a bit like, around things, but now it's just people whinging and tearing people down. It's just now just a full-time, like, negativity thing, right? Get off it. It's not good for you. It's reality distorting for a start. You can't fully leave it when you're in my area and when you've got sunk costs, but for the most part, no, fuck it. Like, no. The people are just there to be horrible to each other and to tear people down. They don't actually do anything. I'm of the view that Twitter is a mental illness at this point for the vast majority of people. Right. So anyway, TikTok is a stupid factory. Twitter is an anger factory, and you don't need that shit in your life. You don't need TikTok. TikTok makes you stupid. It's like I cannot see any compelling reason why TikTok is of value if you want to retain your brain in any way. So anyway, and again, call me a Luddite or whatever, but it's not the case. Like, I embrace new technology, but I focus on solutions, and I'm more interested in these solutions and being at the grown-ups table, not the kids table, pitching a fit, because I've had too much fucking sugar. Okay. So, but, you know, that's what happened with, you know, we've seen this politically, which is that these fringe groups build cults online, and because they are online is the place where they can just sort of, you know, grow their audience, get validation, keep that thing, but they never actually leave the house. They never actually go outside. They never actually interact with anyone. They're definitely not involved in policy. What they do is they sit and argue on the internet about various things. Now, my one interaction. See, the thing is, every time you go on Twitter and you go, oh, I think I'll catch up, you go, oh, I regret this straight away. But, you know, you just do it and you use it. Okay. So anyway, turn notifications off and just say what you want to do. Say hi, go. Okay. But it's like, okay, I said something about the heat, just, you know, stupid chatter stuff. And it's like, oh, we need to prioritise better housing design in Australia. And I said, well, who's we? What do you mean we? We on the internet? Because passive housing designs have been around forever. There's a whole bunch of experts that have passive solar, passive, like the way that the orientation of the houses and all that sort of stuff. They're like, we need to do that. It's like, but people are doing it. Like, it's easy to say a statement, and it does tend to be people who sit around who actually fall into the culture wars because they think that the culture wars is politics. But for the most part, it's like, but you do know that there's people who are actually doing this. It's not an internet discussion. Like, you can go to a builder right now and get a completely, sustainable, passive, grey water house, okay? There is policy there from the government where new builds have to have meet certain environmental standards. The problem is that the market doesn't demand it because in Australia, everyone, you know, again, partially because of the price of housing, but also we've been over the years through various policy levers and also having a federal government that is, you know, doesn't invest and didn't give a fuck about this stuff. Okay. We've only had a Labor government for 2 years, and they care about that. Federal government doesn't care about that, so they didn't make it a priority, okay? Which was, and also this is a state government thing, but federal government didn't put any real rewards or incentives in place to build this stuff. But solar incentives, solar grants, making sure that every new land release or new, new development is meets certain environmental criteria. Okay, those exist, but because we've got an oligopoly when it comes to land and real estate and all those sorts of things, they want to reduce their costs, and the problem is that Australians want their shoebox, a dust bowl without trees, and they don't care. They just want their little McMansions, right? It's like, but we need to talk. And then again, of course, it will always be the Labor government's fault somehow. So when you have these conversations, like, no, but Labor has the policy that will bring what you're talking. Oh no, but they suck because of, it's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Stop arguing on the internet, okay? You don't know what you're talking about. That's just one example, okay? And that will come back to tech bros like sucking, because tech bros are the classic example of people who think they know everything and they actually don't, calling everyone names that don't actually show up. They think that they're just inventing new solutions to problems that, first of all, don't exist, or have an existing framework that they think they can just sidestep and override, right? Psychology, law. These things are regulated industries, okay? You can't just go and say you're a psychologist. You can't just go and do psychology without a license. Like, there's criminal and civil penalties for that, right? And they think that they can just bypass these things because it's like, well, obviously you don't understand the market that you're going into. You're just trying to disrupt things, but you don't realize that you actually you don't have the right to do that. You need to be regulated, okay? And you can't just turn around and call everyone Luddites, okay? I've been in tech for 20 years. I'm not resisting technology. If anything, I think I'm excited about the use of AI in particular, okay, and its application in certain things. But it needs oversight. You can't just sit around and start talking about AI psychologists. That needs ethical oversight. I can't even go and talk about anything to do with psychology without because I'm not a registered psychologist. Tech should not be running, unethical psychology experiments on people, Facebook, and, they shouldn't be running those things. They've hidden under the guise of like user UX, research and A/B testing and all of these other things to basically perform unethical psychology experiments on people without their consent. That is a problem. That needs oversight. You need to be a registered practicing psychologist, if not having board oversight with an ethics committee to do these things. You can't just go and create AI that it's unethical and also should be illegal. And this is where the boards this is again the problem with the bureaucracies involved, like the APA or the APS or BPS or whatever country you're in, right? They're usually like older like psychologists, and they're not ready for AI. It's like, no, you need to be setting up a policy that says that, these things are unethical. You need to be lobbying governments to make sure that the unethical use of AI has stiff criminal/civil penalties, okay? It needs to be regulated. You can't just say, here's an AI girlfriend. Now, so the AI girlfriend thing, you can't trust them to just bake it into the terms of service. That's not law. The terms of service is not the law. The government needs to turn around and go, no, okay, there are ethical applications for these things. Like, I think that the AI girlfriend thing would have some ethical applications to it, like with building social skills, learning how to talk to women, learning all those things. But there is a flip side to that needs ethical and legal and oversight, right, by a registered psychologist and by people who are across the research. Same thing with VR, right? VR can have, again, you can't just keep pushing things forward because you only see the good side of tech and ignore all of the fallout and then push all the externalities onto everyone else. You need to pay. You need to have a license to do these things. If I talk about the law and I talk about anything on here, even just on YouTube, okay, I have to disclaim what I'm saying. I have to say I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a psychologist. I am not giving advice, okay, and not just merely using that to get out of trouble, okay, but also because I know why those things are there, which is that if I give bad legal advice or bad psychological advice, that hurts people. And at the end of the day, if you don't want to be regulated and you don't understand why you should be regulated, that is, if anything, an argument for more regulation and more scrutiny on what you are doing. Because if you want to be if you don't want to be regulation exists for a reason. And the basis for that is that it is unethical to perform these. It's unethical because people get hurt. Okay. And it's not your right to just recklessly move forward and push technology forward, arrogantly thinking that you have all the answers when really you're just on the internet saying, if only someone made an app for this thing. It's like, well, no, these structures exist for a reason, like psychology in particular. Okay, you can't just go and have an AI psychologist. It's not how, it's like every human psychologist has to be registered and have oversight and have professional development and have audits on their skills and have supervision. Okay, why you have to comply with that. And the reason you have to comply with that is because of the dark history of psychology, the harm that it has done. And I'm sorry, but if you resist that, you're a psycho and you need to go to jail for being a fucking psycho. Okay? For practicing psychology without a license. It's not authoritarian or Luddite. This is basic fucking decency and it is basic respect. Okay? So this comes back to the tech bro mindset. This tech bro mindset that every problem just needs an app. Everything just needs more technology. It's like, no, we have learned from things. There are lessons to be learned, okay? You don't know it all. And if anything, one thing I've learned is that tech bros have massive gaps. And when I talk about tech bros, I'm not talking about people who are in tech. Most people, again, who are in tech are the majority. They're reasonable. They understand why these rules exist and why these gates exist, okay? Why you can't just go setting up AI girlfriends without like considering the actual fallout and the actual side impact of that. Okay, which is that AI girlfriend, look at the research into sex robots, right? There is a therapeutic use for that, okay? Especially in terms of, loneliness or, learning social skills, learning relationship skills, but that should have therapeutic oversight, okay? And also with AI, I talked about this with the last stream about how, all things considered, I would much prefer robots and AI be exposed to sort of certain things over humans, right? So in the case of like AI, Instagram, OnlyFans women, I'd rather them get all the abuse, okay, than, women, right? than a real woman who is, from a pragmatic point of view, right? Obviously, I'd prefer that men just didn't dehumanize and abuse women online and think that they were allowed to do that. But, that's unfortunately going to be the case. So if they were going to go and abuse women online, I would prefer that they weren't like trafficked women. I would prefer that they were like, if again, this is a thought experiment, I'd prefer that men just didn't do that. But, men, like, they're just going to. It sucks, but they're going to. And it's the same thing. Like I said, I talked about content moderation before. I'd prefer AI do content moderation over humans who have to be exposed to all of that stuff. Again, I'd prefer that we didn't have war. I'd prefer that we didn't have people to do that stuff. But you can't design society around that. Okay, it'd be nice if we did it'd be nice if we created better conditions so people were less shitty to each other. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a percentage of people who are horrible, and and I would prefer that they fuck off, lock themselves in their house and abuse an AI. That would be better. Isolate them from society, put them in prison and let them fucking go, right? That's my preference, rather than people being, collateral damage to all these fetishes and stuff like that. Let them go, right? That's one, and again, I'd prefer it to be used therapeutically, okay? But I also think that, like with sex robots in particular, right? These things have, they do, like I said, they have a therapeutic effect, but they also normalize certain things. Like you can't ignore the data around those things, which is that most of the sex robots that are ordered are heavily pornified, are often made of children, and often programmed in a way that is normalizing the dehumanization of women, right? That's a fact, okay? So that the way that those things are used, right, there's a flip side to both of those things. It doesn't make you a Luddite to go, hey, I have a problem with sex robots, okay? Yes, there is an argument that those who, again, those who are going to offend, this becomes a thought experiment, okay? It's not, it's kind of like, well, I reject the premise, which is that they shouldn't be like, we shouldn't be encouraging the behavior at all. But the thing is that, harm minimization approach to this is, well, if they're going to offend, I'd rather it be a robot than a person, right? That's not a difficult thing, but but that doesn't necessarily mean we need to be pushing it forward. It doesn't mean that we need to be giving children methadone because they are curious about heroin. We need to still make sure that people aren't doing these things, and we still need to make sure that the law says, the law should set the stand. No, the law should not set the what people loopholes, right? The law should ideally set the society that we want and drive it forward in that way, okay? And unfortunately, the whole cohort of tech bros that are currently, idiotic for a start, selfish, psychopaths. Again, there's a lot of ethical people in tech. There's a lot of people who are not that. I'm talking about a specific type of tech bro, right? The Rumpelstiltskins, right, of the tech industry. Where, they promised that, they'd help you sort of weave your business into gold, and then all of a sudden they're asking for your firstborn, right? That's how it is. And what we've got to do is name and shame. That's how, familiarize yourself with Rumpelstiltskin, you name it, okay? You don't let him manipulate you anymore, and you face him, right? That's how you do it, and that's what I'm doing here. You name the problem, which is that these guys are exploitative, they are selfish, they are greedy, they have no social skills, they're not that clever, and just because they can code, they think that they have solutions to every problem that exists, and they do not, okay? And this is, you can't just make an app that, like, steals art, steals music, steals from artists, steals from the rest of us, does therapy without a license, okay? It does unethical psych experiments without a license, wholesale, like I've talked about the theft, creates AI AI representations of people without their consent and without like severe fines. Like, that is not how you run things. And the answer is not, well, it's going to happen anyway. It's like, no. The law says what the bar is, and you meet that bar. And if you don't meet that bar, you go to jail, okay? You can't say, well, murder's going to happen anyway, therefore murder should be legal. That is not. No, murder is illegal. And if you murder people, then you get punished, okay? You don't just go, oh, well, people are going to rape This is the whole mindset of the tech bro. This is why these sex dolls exist. Again, the rationalization. I can see that but they need to be licensed. Same thing with vaping laws, right? All of these things where people are going to do it anyway, therefore there shouldn't be a law around it, or therefore, it should be completely, it's like, well, no, the law sets certain benchmarks, and we live in a fucking society. Okay, you can't just do what you want, and just stop being a toddler. And it's like, but even then it's like, who's we? When you say we need to discuss this, who are you talking to? Which department? Which expert? Which research paper? Which discipline? And people are just talking about this like fluffy they, like, it's like, who? Which government? Okay. It's like, there's labor laws, there's laws around things. There's people who dedicate their lives to this stuff. There's like people who go, I think this is a bad idea. And I think that, like this EAC shit is a cult. And also I think that maybe we should not be designing society around the fact that around the like 2% of psychos that seem to have taken over everything. And it's like, no, we are like 98%. Okay, of the population. We don't have to accept this. We don't have to make excuses for it. We can turn around and go, no, I'm sorry. Yes, will it go underground? Yeah, probably. But it will stop my son's like you'd have to, at least with piracy, right? You make it trickier. You make it more technical. So you put enough friction in place where most people will just go, oh, fuck it, and pay for Netflix. And so eventually there becomes a point where, the barrier is so high, you have to be very technical, and all of those things, right? And most people will go, fuck it, and they'll just pay for Netflix. So that's how it applied with the piracy thing, which is that, and again, I'm not saying that was a good call. I'm just saying that this is just a policy mechanism. This is how it works, okay? Which is that, now, do I have a problem with some of these things? Of course I do, right? But I'm saying that as a policy solution, you can't just go, well, people are going to pirate anyway, therefore let's just let everyone go. It's like, you're an idiot. You got brainworms. Stop it. Okay, that's not a solution. You're not bringing any answers. You're just arguing on the internet and you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Okay, we need to do this. No, you don't. You're a child. You're a toddler. It is because of you that we need laws. Okay, you're one of the 10% of fuckwits that 90% of the laws are made for, because you don't have any manners and you have no ethics. You seem to think that you can just create these psychology AI apps, or, that you're just going to, like lawyers who think that they can just replace other lawyers with AI. It's like, well, why is the legal profession regulated to begin with? Why do you sign up to this code of ethics? You should lose your license for doing it until we can, you can't just do that. There's rules. And the rules exist for a reason, which is because we've learned from things in the past, which is that people get hurt. If you're a criminal lawyer and you've got a client and you are representing a client and you are using AI, you are not giving, again, I know this is a generalization because LexisNexis has a purpose-built AI. I'm saying there are benefits, technical benefits to it. But if you're not manually reviewing it and overseeing it and just merely taking what the AI says on face value, you're a bad lawyer and you're an unethical one, because that's a human if you'd actually spent another 10 minutes looking into it, that maybe, you might have found some other argument or something else. Now, again, I'm qualifying that with, of course, it can also help, suggest gaps, right? But I'm saying that you can't just be a normie and go and get legal advice from a chatbot without training. Like anyone who knows anything about anything specific, like has subject matter expertise, sees the gaps. Okay, if you're a good writer, you see how shit it is at writing. If you're a good musician, you hear how shit it is at music. All those things, right? Tech bros are selling these things as though they are disrupting and replacing people, and idiot managers are taking it on board, and that is not the case, okay? They are terrible, and it actually hurts people, okay? No one really gets hurt, okay, if someone puts an AI music filter on a song, okay? Other than maybe you might not have had to have paid a producer, right, or someone to master your music, okay? But people do get hurt with AI girlfriends, with, medicine, with law, with psychology, with these things where experience and expertise and having seen things that an AI can't necessarily, at the moment, okay, can't necessarily predict with like 100% accuracy. The threshold has to be 100%. Okay, now no human is 100%, but that's not the point. The point is that it needs to be regulated, and if you are using these things, in illegal, ideally illegal ways, then you should go to jail or get a fine, like anything else. If you're practicing medicine without a license, you go to jail. So if you're creating an LLM right now that does, without like oversight from the medical board or oversight from the psych board, you go to jail. I don't see how this is a controversial view, okay? Because humans are subjected to those rules, and you should be too. And that will put enough disincentives. And also, you will get more knowledge that way. Work with the bodies that already exist, okay? No one's rejecting. And so to turn around and just call people Luddites, right? This is and gaslighting everybody who is like generally widely supportive of tech. Oh, fuck off, grandpa. Like, you just don't get it. And it's like, well, actually, I've been you, dickhead. I was you in my 20s. Shut the fuck up, okay? The stakes weren't so high in social. They are now, okay? The stakes actually are high now. I wish I'd listened more about I've always pushed for industry. I've always suggested that there should be a regulatory board for web and digital and all those things. I believe in there being board oversight in anything where you are offering a service. I think that's just, I think oversight and professional oversight is very, very, very important, okay? Especially where you are, affecting end users, right? If social media companies had regulatory oversight and an ethics board from the get-go, we wouldn't see so many of these problems now, right? It's just because they're sort of 10 years too late that now they're having to retroactively sort of put the genie back in the bottle and threaten these things, right? But we should have been earlier with that stuff. But with AI, like, the stakes are too high, and the attitude, they're off the rails. The response to this stuff has been, it's not so much the concerns, right? But the fact that they just go, fuck you, doomer, Luddite, I'm going to do what I want. You can't fight progress. Oh, you bet you we fucking can, because we can stop you from chopping up bodies too. We can stop you from, speeding. We can stop you from America, except for America, but we can actually stop you from doing certain things. And, we can actually say, no, that is illegal and you will get fined. you make the fine outweigh the benefit, and that should disincentivize enough people, right? And then you take it to law enforcement to take care of the rest, okay? And it's like, no, you I'm sorry, but yes, you can. You don't have the right. There is no. It amazes me how this is where like a low civic literacy really does come into play here, which is people who turn around and like, oh, there's a new law, and it's like, why weren't we consulted? It's like, well, you are. Especially in Australia, they like over consult. They have Parliament, they have first reading, second reading, they have a consultation phase, they publish everything. Everything is linked to a bill or regulation, and if they fuck up, there's a royal commission, and then those reforms are in place. You can go to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, you can go to the ACCC, you can go to your union. There is a multitude of ways for you to find out what's going on. The problem is you're lazy. Okay, these things exist. The structures exist. The process exists. Go to a fucking meeting. Okay. Oh, we need to discuss this on Twitter. No, you don't. It's pointless. Twitter's pointless. You don't need to discuss fuck all. You need to go and look into like housing design and how it's like progressed. You need to look into alternative energy. You need to look into all these things. You need to look into all the government policies that are in place over the housing crisis, rather than just mouthing off and blaming Labor for everything because you just don't like Labor, because you're just being drip fed a bunch of bullshit because you don't know how policy works. And if someone tries to tell you, you just say, oh, well, everyone's entitled to their opinion. So all these fucking idiots. I'm just sick of idiots in general. Just sick of idiots running the show. And I think it's okay to just turn around and say, you're an idiot. Here's your fine for being a fucking idiot. And can we just start to run things again and can we all agree to just leave them to all just hang out on Twitter? Let them argue with AI. Let them have their AI girlfriends. Let them have their fucking sex robots. But make sure that they are contained and make sure that they cannot do harm to other people. Let them just fuck off and do their own thing, okay? They can go join that camp and do whatever they want, but just, like I've often said with Donald Trump, just do the Truman Show with him. Just put cameras on him 24/7 and lock him and his fucking people in that dome. And then just stream it and let him go. And everyone just laugh at him and contain him. Don't let him run for president. Just put him in the dome. Okay? It's like, fuck me. Can we just get back to running a fucking society again, please? And stop having people, idiots dictate how things work and operate, because they can't be asked looking stuff up, or they can't be bothered. The information is there for you. We have access to the same tools. You have access to the same tools that I do. I look stuff up. I read stuff all day, every day. You can't be bothered. You're too busy watching TikTok. You're too busy getting angry. You're too busy watching stupid shit and reading stupid shit and not learning anything. You're just having your fucking worldview affirmed all of the time while the people are getting on with the things that are actually really interesting. Okay? If you actually took 5 minutes to just get out of this fucking rage spiral that you're on, you would actually learn that there are a lot of people doing a lot of fucking important work, and you could just go and find that out. The least you can do is just read about it. I'm not asking you to participate in it or help or contribute in any way, because that would fucking never happen. Okay, you're just here thinking as a service, and you're just like, it's just drip-fed dopamine. But, and you're not going to go to a meeting. God forbid you actually show up to a meeting or do anything, okay? You're just going to argue on the internet with other idiots who don't know what they're talking about and saying, just generalizing about entire groups of people, never defining your terms, never declaring what worldview you want to bring about, and calling everyone else names who disagrees with you and is actually doing the work and actually understands that the world's a bit more complicated than you think, or complex than you think, okay? And that, no, you can't practice medicine without a license. You can't do psychology without a license. People shouldn't be allowed to use the fucking internet without a license at this rate. Seriously, they should be on. Do you know what? I think we should have a 2-tier internet, which is an internet for people to do banking, email, and basic government services, and a basic internet for people. But you've got to have a license for the rest. You got to pass this internet civics test. Had enough. And a literacy test. It's like, fuck me. It's insane. Oh, it's authoritarian. Okay, what about that is authoritarian? You don't know what authoritarianism is or means. That's just governing. Okay? Or fuck me. I'm so sick of people. I'm so sick of this whole, like, people being children, like, over COVID. It's like, just fucking hell. It's not authoritarianism to tell you to put a mask on. For fuck's sake. Okay? Same thing with the vaccination. It's like when they're doing public health stuff. It's like, you do know that the people who model it do model it on fuckwits. They know that you're going to be a fuckwit. So the reason why they won't engage with you or encourage you in any way is because they know that you're a fuckwit and that fuckwits tend to spread to other fuckwits. So what they're trying to do is get at least 90% of the population inoculated and let the fuckwits go to, again, they contain the fuckwits. They're not persecuting you. It's called public health. It's called public policy. It's like anyone who does public policy knows that they're going to have a bunch of people who won't do that shit because they're fucking idiots. But you don't listen to them and you don't give them any power. You just keep going. And then you sideline them and you sideline them. You're not being oppressed. You're part of the fuckwits who won't listen. So they ignore you and get on with the business of running things. Because you're too busy popping off on the internet. You don't do anything. You just complain. Okay? It's like, we need to just start containing fucking idiots and toddlers who won't play nice with the rest of us. Okay? And they can call us whatever. They can call you a communist. They can call you authoritarian. It's not true. You got plenty of chances to fucking engage in the policy and the actual, like, details. But, AI needs to be regulated, okay? I'm sorry, it just does. You're in a society. Well, I don't know what to tell you. You can't just steal from everybody and scrape the internet and think that there's no consequences for that. You can't just go around fucking people, right, without, like, any recourse. That's not that's not a society. That's America. And that's going to collapse if you don't fucking, like, get your shit together. That's fascism. Actually, no, it's not. It's anarchy. But, I'm just saying, like, they want, anarcho-capitalist guys, they don't want any laws. They don't want any fucking government. They don't want any taxes. They just want to, like, fuck everyone over. You don't want to live in that society. And if you do, then you're not my friend. I'm sorry, but I don't want that. I want people to be fed and clothed and housed and, like, the most vulnerable to, not starve just because they can't do back-breaking labor. I don't want that world. Okay? It's not authoritarian to have a civil society and rules and laws and punishments and consequences for actions. That's not authoritarianism. Authoritarianism is holding people hostage with food, shelter, and water. And you're the authoritarian because you are using, like, coercive measures to get, to extract shit from people. Okay? You're the one who's doing it. If you want to do Darvo, I'll do Darvo right back. Okay? I'm so fucking sick of tech bros and their rationalization and, like, glossing over the bad, like, the negatives. It's like the downsides of this are way bigger than the upsides. And if you can't go and address to an ethics committee why you should have, what plans you have in place for your technology, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be allowed to develop it. And if you get caught doing it, you should be fined and go to jail. That works well for everything, like, works well for other things, okay? Like murder and financial crime and fraud and all of those things. Now, do I wish more people got done for fraud that should be done for fraud? Fuck yes. Do I wish politicians were less corrupt yes. But again, it's because they're over a barrel with these fuckheads with the money. And it's like, well, no, you can't keep doing this to people. You can't just call people names and think you've won the argument. It doesn't work that way. You can't just keep developing technology that fucks people over. Pay Pay for what you use. And if you defame people or you build an AI that defames them, you pay damages. I'm sorry, you can't just take someone's likeness and build an AI without their consent and without the family's consent. Look at what Kelly Carlin has to say about this whole George Carlin AI thing. If you watch that, you're like, I'm sorry, I refuse to watch it. I'm not watching it. I refuse. And that, if you think that makes me a Luddite, then you're completely missing the point. I'm not rewarding your behavior. I don't reward psychopaths, and I don't reward people who don't give a fuck about the family and how it affects the family and how it affects, the people around you. It's like that has to be like something that we just stop incentivizing. It is not okay. You can't treat people this way. You can't just vacuum up everyone's data and vacuum up everyone's writing and vacuum up everyone's art and vacuum up everyone's code that people shared in good faith, thinking that it would move things forward. And now you're the one who goes, no, I'm taking it now. It's mine. Fuck you. No, that doesn't work that way. Pay data dividends. Pay people for the data that you've taken from them. If you use that data in any way, you have to license that data from them. If you use it illegally, you will be fined out of business and possibly go to jail. Okay? Sorry. We live in a society. Okay? If you go and use you can't just go and make nuclear bombs without a fucking license. Okay? You can't just go and do that. You can't just go and in most societies outside of America, you can't just carry a gun around. Okay, you can't just you have to have a license to have a gun. It's extremely strict. We've got very strict gun control laws, and guess what? We don't have mass shootings. It's like, this is how you fix it. You regulate it. Punish non-compliance. And are there going to be people? Is there going to be a black market of guns? Yes. But it's the same thing with the gun argument, right? That whole thing. Well, a good guy with a gun and a bad guy. No. You limit the amount of guns available in the economy because most people obey the law, and most people do the non-psychopathic calculation and go, you know what, there's a good chance I'll get caught or fined or whatever, and there's enough social pressure and social stigma around breaking the law that I will stop doing it, okay? And then you focus your energy on the people who break the law. You give them fines. You give them jail time, and you have a justice system. You have a due process and all those sorts of things that go with the law, okay? But it doesn't mean just because someone's going to have an illegal gun, or someone in China might do it, that somehow that everyone should just have a gun now. That's America brain. That's America logic, okay? No, that's not how you run things. It's not how you run things. It doesn't work. Creates more mass shootings, okay? And you end up here. You end up with more guns. It's like, well, no, it's like AI, it needs to, anyway. So, but the attitude of tech bros just gets on my tits. I have so switched. Now, again, I'm going to qualify what I'm saying with the fact that, I'm not talking about all of tech, obviously. I'm talking about these fucking anarcho-capitalist, Dunning Kruger, check mark on Twitter, tech bros, where they just sit there talking about, even OpenAI. It's like it's against their terms of service to create AI girlfriends. And guess what they did? Went and created AI girlfriends anyway. And it's like, that why the rules exist. Can you just take a second to learn why they exist? That would be a good start, because they exist for a good reason, which is that it's wrong. Okay, look to the authorities that know better and go, should I be doing that? No. Okay. Oh, wow. The vast number of experts think I shouldn't do this. I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, the experts are lying to me. I'm going to go, oh, okay, maybe that's a cue that I fucking don't know what I'm talking about, and maybe that I'm the reason the law exists. Okay. So like with the, turf brain shit. If enough people are telling you that you're fucking gone too far that you should take a moment and look at who you're hanging with, and you're sharing libs of TikTok and you're sharing all this far right shit and you're defending Matt Walsh and you go, well, people are telling you that you're a fascist. You go, am I? What's the evidence? Oh, yeah, okay, maybe. Maybe I've been radicalized. Maybe I don't have all of the answers all of the time. Maybe if I defer to those who have spent the last 20 years researching this, maybe people are actually decent and good. And maybe this whole far right worldview relies on you not thinking that people are good, but that people are fundamentally untrustworthy and bad. And that is a horrible way to live your life, because most people are not bad. Most people are good, and given the chance and the circumstances and the opportunity to be good to others, the vast majority of people will do the right thing. And the reason why we have laws and the reason why we have, all of these things, okay, and these processes is because over time we've figured out that, we have to, that we're oriented in that direction towards good. And we need to start sidelining these people who hate people and they hate humans. The far right fucking people hate humanity. Tech bros hate humanity. We need to start sidelining people and rewarding people who hate humanity. Because humanity is great and people are good for the most part. Obviously, I have a more, again, this is an untested hypothesis, right? Because we've never really had these things. But I believe that the more you look after people, the happier they are. I mean, Cuba's a good example of that, actually, where I think Cuba's probably the closest example where and the Nordic countries where, happiness indexes go up with good social policies. You give people, what they need to live, and you don't exploit people, and people, now again, who cares? Again, you quibble over the details. It depends on what numbers you're looking at. But I'm saying, the broader trend is that when you give people enough food, shelter, and purpose in their life, that they are less likely to fuck people over, right? Seems like it's like, well, maybe you should just stop fucking people over and stop bringing about the apocalypse, because it seems like you don't like people and you hate people and you've been hurt by people. So you use that as to bludgeon everyone else with your worldview that people suck. It's like, people don't suck. Who hurt you? People don't suck. People are good. Mostly. You're fuckwits. Fuckwits are different. Okay? Fuckwits are still mostly good. Still, everyone's got a bit of fuckwit. But I'm just saying, right? Most people are not irredeemable. Most people have something to offer if you just give them the fucking right circumstances and space to do so. And your view of the world, tech bros and these Daily Wire and all these right wingers and the people, who just they don't trust people, they don't trust humanity, and they don't believe in humans to do the right thing. Even though I see all this institutional fucking fuckery right now, do you know what I also see? A whole bunch of people who work in those institutions who have had enough. And that is the thing where you go, you know what? We can change stuff. Am I going to sit there and listen to the person who's sitting on Twitter all day, guts aching and complaining? Or am I going to go over here where the people who are actually have decision-making capacity and can do things and try to persuade them that we can do things differently, or we can build alternatives and fuck them? Because if you believe that people are good, then you believe that you can change things and you believe that you can persuade them in your direction. That is nihilism is fundamentally an anti-human perspective, because it means you don't believe in them and you don't believe in the goodness of humans, and you're not someone that people want to be around. Do I despair at how humans behave? Yes. Do I understand it? Also, yes. Do I think that means that humans are terrible? No. I think that we haven't been given the right chances. And if you don't see it that way, then I don't know what to tell you, because I've seen the pretty rotten parts of humanity. I've seen some very bad parts of humanity, okay? I've seen people think I'm just this middle-class person, white lady, whatever. You don't understand, okay? I've seen shit that, you don't let this stuff trick you. Okay. Also, this is moving because it's very, very hot today and the aircon's going and it's blowing on this. But, like, think about how you view people. Okay, I trust people. Do people hurt me all the time for that? Yes. Do I get taken advantage of a lot? Yes. Do I get a lot of abuse from people who are angry and, bitter and, all that sort of stuff? Yes. Do I let it deter me? No, because I refuse to cave to nihilism. Okay, I refuse to have a negative worldview. I believe everyone can change, even tech bros. If you just, you need to put enough what you need to do is create a legal framework that at least filters out those that can rationalize it. So those that make the calculations. Okay, most people, this was really interesting in my advanced jurisprudence course, which you do the philosophy of law and like why law exists, what law is. These are ongoing debates. Like, what is law? Okay, so I'm touching on views of those things, right? But, there's different views on what the law is and why people obey it. And for the most part, people believe, there's different schools of thought, but most people believe that a law exists as sort of a, it expresses like the baseline norms of a society, right? That's what I believe law is. I believe that law reflects our values and law reflects who we are, what we want, who we want to be. And most people will look to the law as a form of social proof on what is right and wrong, okay? And then there are people who will look at the law as like the letter of the law and what they can get away with, right? This is one of those, like the bad man hypothesis. You might have heard of that, right? It's this idea that like the law is only as robust or the law is defined by like the bad man, like the person, Elon Musk, right? It's people who abuse the court, right? Or just slippery, like they don't have any real social, they don't see it as any kind of guide or moral guide or ethical guide to like how to live their life, but as something to manipulate and get around and use, right? To their own advantage, right? Those people will always exist. But there are, for the most part, for the vast majority of people look to the law as a sort of consensus around what our norms are. So just by having a law on the books, you tell people and you send a signal to people that this is sort of the standard, right? And I think Australia has very much because, again, laws are only as good as their enforcement, right? Which is true. But at the same time, just having it on the books can sometimes just be enough of a thing where it disincentivizes people. So, I mean, with tech law in particular, right? The threat of regulation when it comes to like the news bargaining code, right? The threat of regulation is enough of a deterrent to get them to regulate, because basically it is like, well, I will use, or the threat of a fine or, because they always push up against things and they know that's what we're seeing with tech law at the moment, where that they won't want their EULAs or terms of service, or too much scrutiny in superior courts. They know that they will lose. So the tech company's legal strategy, not a lawyer, but this is what, but this is roughly the strategy that I'm seeing, right? Which is that they're keeping it in arbitration, they're keeping it in the lower courts and getting it dismissed. They are trying to control the regulatory environment. So what they're doing is pretending to work with governments to get the regulations that are favourable to them and sort of doing them, pulling the levers there, because the second that they get to a higher court on a number of these things, it will come down to rights and it will come down to sort of the fact that they can't win those in court, right? So it is in their interests. So what they're doing is in terms of like the way that they're calculating these things strategically for the business is that the threat of this stuff is enough for them to come to the party and at least try to get some regulation. They don't want regulation. If they wanted regulation, they'd have gotten it like 15 years ago. They're doing it because they're trying to avoid more regulation and or, in this case, a high court case that says the terms of service are unconscionable. You need to like compensate users. That's the bigger play here, right? You need to have a remedy here with the users because you stole their shit. And once that gets to the High Court, it's going to like dismantle most of tech law as you know it, right? Because a lot of them are built on these foundations. So that's always been the case. But merely having a law will deter most people. So for most people, they'll go, that's illegal. Or you'll go to a lawyer and you'll go, okay, I want to set up a business. And the lawyer goes, that's illegal. You probably shouldn't do that. A good portion of people will go, okay, I'll find something legal then. Okay. There's always those 10% of people, fuckwits as usual, who will try to go, okay, well, how do we do this in a shady way? Okay, well, more like 40%, but there's people that will do, how do we get around that stuff? And that's what you're seeing in tech, which is most of them have built businesses on shady practices and unethical things that most people know should be illegal. Most people agree should probably be illegal once you actually learn the details, but they've worked around that stuff and, they're getting away with it. But once you make it but they're kind of being opportunists at the moment because it's not illegal currently, but it will be later. So there's that gap. So that's where we're in at the moment. But eventually what you're seeing that stuff with the big tech companies at the moment. If you're paying attention to the hirings and firings and everything, they're reorganizing their businesses because, they know they're getting antitrust. So Google, Amazon, I can't remember if Apple's, but they're all getting antitrust cases left, right and center. So the FTC in America is going after them finally. And Microsoft and those companies, they're getting antitrust scrutiny, but they're shuffling their business around as if that's already happening. So they're fighting it, but they're shuffling their businesses around as if it's already happening, right? And so they're anticipating that. Same thing's happening. So, once it's law, a lot of things will fall away. A lot of products, a lot of businesses will fall away because people don't want the fines. Okay, so it's not just a thing about, like I was saying, the fines are, in Facebook and Google and Amazon's case, you need to make the penalties, and X as well, you need to make the penalties high enough that it is a deterrent, okay? Now, the problem with tech companies is that they can play jurisdiction whack-a-mole and drag this out for years and years and years, which is why that's why you need it to be, we need to be much like with, what's the best example that I can think of policy-wise? Like tax avoidance, okay? So once you have, internationally, so obviously you've got tax havens around the world, right? But what they've been doing to get rid of these sort of tax havens, right, is to lift the company tax. So it's to lift the company tax to this level internationally everywhere, okay, so that it sort of just raises the bar for everyone. So the EU, you get what I'm saying, so that there's no real ways that they can't just hop. So, and the same thing with copyright law. And the DMCA is a good example of that, where this is where international law. So it's not that people really don't understand international law is not international law. International law is like where you go, and that's only for a handful of things like, war crimes or, those sorts of things. Most of it is a commitment to an agreement to implement local legislation. Okay. So you ratify it, right? So the international copyright agreements, okay, we implement the Copyright Act here. The US implements over there. Europe implements their version, okay? And so they do like a domestically, in line with their constitution and their whatever's relevant for them. And so what that does is that law sets a standard across the board that should be met. So international law is not just, they're going to send the police over because you broke international law. It doesn't work that way, okay? It's a lot more complex than that. But anyway, but what I'm saying is and I'm sure that there's, I know, this stuff escapes me in the moment because I didn't plan to talk about it. But the mere presence of a law deters a whole bunch of people from engaging in the practice, right? So, there's always going to be that handful of people that don't care that there's a law, right? That's called sociopaths, right? They're outside and they don't respect the law. They don't care. Okay. But so for them, you need severe penalties, but for the vast majority, you will see an overall decrease in a behavior if you criminalize it. Okay. Now it will go black market, and so it's not just one law, and it's lots of different policy levers that you pull at once, right? It's not, and this is the thing that annoys me about people arguing on the internet. Okay, like with the vaping thing, it's like you're not outlawing vaping. they're regulating it and making it safer and making it so that it's still available for those who access it. In practice, you're going to be able to find any GP will probably be able to prescribe a vape, and you probably find that pharmacies are selling vape paraphernalia. Okay, when you get a note from your doctor, it's effectively decriminalized. It's more like a it's just a more the way that they're having this stuff like represented is like they're taking stuff away, and like it's like you're being fined for vaping and stuff. It's like it's such a stupid fucking argument. It's like, yeah, because you can't just go giving pure nicotine to people without like regulation. Like, it's the health and safety, it's public health issues. Like the policy is, first of all, Border Control and Therapeutic Goods Administration. It's not the police, okay? It is just making it so that you can't sell nicotine without a license, and you have to be a registered professional. It's the same thing with AI and technology, okay? Which is that these things can cause harm to the public, and if the public has there's any risk of harm to the general public, then you need to be regulated. And that's why I've always advocated for digital services to be more heavily regulated, and very clear set of ethical and unethical guidelines that are, you get fines. If you use like certain dark patterns, you get fined, right? And I think that's a good standard. And unfortunately, the problem with tech bros is that they just don't understand that they live in society, and they think that they're going to create this blockchain-driven, no government, internet-only world where, for some reason, they still use roads and they still have the internet, and still, like, what are you going to do if someone just comes and takes your shit? Well, cool. What? Okay, they don't have a plan. Still use public goods when it suits them. Or how do we get clean water? Exactly. Okay. What happens when people pollute and like destroy the local dam, and there's like, they just pollute because they think it's theirs. Oh, well, who do you call? We'll just ask them nicely to stop. What? Okay. So, they're bringing about dystopia. The fucking libertarians are idiots. Okay? Now, do you want to orient your society towards as maximum freedom as possible? Absolutely. But I think Australia's, as much as you kind of look at the laws on the books, I think a lot of Americans look at the laws on the books in Australia and are quite horrified. Okay. And yes, we can be quite bureaucratic, and we are very legalistic. So we're very like box ticking, bureaucratic, that sort of stuff. We've got many layers, right? But at the same time, a lot of the Australian like political system is designed around norms and living in a society, and the fact that it is, if it's on the books, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be enforced. Doesn't necessarily mean that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be any action. What it does is it provides a legal framework for if they do need to act or do need to intervene. Because again, you can't just, like this. I love the idea that they just don't understand how government departments work. Government departments need a statutory authority to be able to do certain things. They can't just go authoritarian. It doesn't work that way. Now, can you go into sort of a banality of evil, overly bureaucratic, kind of a soft totalitarianism, like via admin, right? The stealth authoritarianism that I've talked about quite a few times. Yes, of course. But for the most part, our system's pretty robust in terms of its checks and balances in that regard. And so you got these people who've they don't even read, they don't know anything. They just go, I got my rights. Okay, yeah, you do. Okay, fill your boots. Like what? Okay, what policy are you talking about? Gas stoves? Yeah, but it poisons children. Okay? Go get a gas stove then. Okay? It's going to be harder for you to get one. What do you want? What do you want from me? What do you want from the rest of us? Stop holding us all hostage with your toddler fit. It's just like, I'm so sick of toddlers. I'm just so sick of toddlers running the show on the internet. Again, this is just internet arguments, right? Most people are just doing stuff. But this stuff is downwind, right? If you let your organization or you let these people take over and have power, which in the case of OpenAI, this accelerationist movement, like this cult, this tech bro cult, is very powerful. They have a lot of power, and they're lobbying for exemptions in copyright and all of those things behind the scenes. But no, you can, yeah. So you got to fight that stuff. For the most part, it's not just an internet argument, which I thought EAC was just a Twitter fucking idiot thing, until you start seeing it go mainstream and you go, oh, okay, there are a bunch of people who actually believe this that have a lot of sway. Okay, we should probably say something or do something about that. That needs regulating. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to go. I love you. Thanks for watching. I've got to go because I've got lots to do today, but I will, that's my Monday stream. I've showed up. I wasn't in the mood, but fuck tech bros. Fuck them. They need to be regulated. Anyway, okay. Take care. Bye. Bye. Don't be stupid.